Politically, it sucked. But believe it or not, the League of Nations actually did have some achievements in other fields. So, when it came to refugees, they managed to release some 400,000 prisoners of war and send them back to their homelands. And they also issued something called Nansen passports to refugees. And these were really helpful, especially for refugees who belonged to states that had ceased to exist. So now they had become stateless. And the League was also determined to stamp out diseases like cholera from refugee camps, but they were short of funds and workers to do that. When it came to working conditions, they established the International Labour Organization, which banned poisonous white lead from paint before it was used. They limited work hours for small children. They campaigned for improved working conditions for all employees, and they introduced 8 hours per day, 5 days per week working schedule. Problem with this was that many countries just refused to implement these rules, and the ILO did nothing other than naming and shaming them. In terms of health, they collected statistical information and they established research institutes in Singapore, Denmark, and London to research on vaccines for fighting diseases like, malaria and leprosy. And this was actually regarded as the most successful branch of the League of Nations because it continued working even after 1945, and today it's known as the World Health Organization, WHO. When it came to slavery and forced labor, they freed some 200,000 slaves in British owned Sierra Leone. And they also organized raids against slave owners and traders in Burma, which was British Burma in those days, and now it's called Myanmar. And then there was a project in East Africa known as the Tanganyika Railway. And slaves were often, used to build this railway, but the League challenged this. And then there was another problem. The death rate amongst workers here was 50%. And the League, with their reforms and suggestions, managed to bring it down to 4%, which they said was a much more quote acceptable figure. Other actions included, like they blacklisted four large companies from Germany, Holland, France, and Switzerland because they had been involved in illegal drug trade. They also, you know, recommended solutions for practical problems like making shipping lanes, and they made an international highway code for drivers. And although they couldn't really stop slavery, prostitution, and drug smuggling all around the world, they still collected information on such activities. Lastly, when it came to disarmament, here the League failed quite miserably. Or you can say their success was partial, if you want to say it this way. Because although Japan, UK, USA, and France, they all agreed to reduce their navies, they refused to disarm. And Germany had been disarmed to the extent no other nation had been. And because the big powers refused to disarm, we can actually argue that the League was quite, unsuccessful here. And they couldn't do anything because they were the ones, allowing the League to exist in the first place. So the League was absolutely powerless against them. Thank you for watching.